This is Oliver, and he's going to be my buddy today for my Super Saturday video. You say hi, Oliver? Good afternoon, everybody. I'm starting a new series called Super Saturdays. So this week I spent my week feeding my family 5 different types of soups, stews, and chilies. We ate it all week. The total cost of pretty much all the ingredients was right around $25. The thing about soups and chili and stew, I kind of clump them all together, but the thing about them are they're very inexpensive, they're easy to make, and they're healthy. If you're making them yourself, you can, put the amount of salt in you want. You can put lots of vegetables. You can put good healthy protein in. The other thing that's nice about soups is you can prep them early. Put them either in a crock pot or have a pot in your refrigerator. And when you come home from work or come home from a day of doing whatever, you can throw it on the stove or plug the crock pot in and have a nice healthy dinner quickly. Another good thing about soups is they reheat really well and they freeze well. So you could make up a big batch of soup and put it in individual containers and put it in your refrigerator and heat one up for your dinner, or throw them in and have a nice warm lunch at work. Today it is really cold outside, a little olive oil, and I decided I am going to cook a big pot of beef stew, but I call it the poor man's version because I'm using hamburger. What I had was, I got a good deal on hamburger patties, and I chopped them up into cubes. So even though they're hamburger, they're still kind of in cubes. I'm gonna fry those. I don't know why fall makes you feel like soup and stew, but it just does. So tonight we're gonna have stew. Pretty simple meal. I think I'm gonna season the hamburger. Some salt. And some pepper. So this stew is going to be sweet potato stew. What I have here, I have a bowl of onions. I'm going to add that. I just chopped it up. I have a bowl of carrots. I'll add that too. And look at these gorgeous sweet potatoes. Whoops. I'll add these too. I want the hamburger to cook a little first though. And then finally I'll put in a can of crushed tomatoes. So now I am going to put these onions in. And some carrots. Some sweet potatoes, and they look beautiful. I'm going to let those cook a little bit. Alright, I'm going to add some garlic. I only had a little left, so I added some water to the jar. I'm going to pour that in. I'm going to throw in a bay leaf and shake in some thyme. That sounds good, huh? About that much. Put this can of tomatoes in. And now I'm going to fill it with water. I'm going to put this water in. That way, see? Look, my can is sparkly clean. I didn't waste anything. I'm going to put this in instead of putting in bouillon or beef broth. This is a packet from that ramen. So when I add it to the water, that's going to pretty much make it taste like beef broth. So there we go. Look at that. That looks good. Now I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to cook this low and slow for about 3 hours on my stove with the lid on. And then I'll show you. This is that beef stew I made. I made some rice and put it over the top. Or I also had some leftover biscuits in the freezer. If people wanted a biscuit, they could have it with the stew. Anyway, sweet potato, poor man's beef stew. And I put it on my harvest placemat because it made me feel like fall. Delicious. So I took one of the packs of chicken breasts and threw it in the crock pot this morning with a whole bunch of water, as much as I could fit in there. And then I stuck a bay leaf, some salt and pepper, and frozen veggie scraps from my freezer. And I cooked it all day. And I got 2 big pots of broth. I was just gonna make one of my soup recipes for the week. I decided I would make 2 since I had so much broth. So I'm chopping up some carrots. And this is for the chicken soup I'm going to make. What I'm essentially doing is I'm going to doctor up this ramen soup. So I took out I'll show you. I took out the seasoning packet. I've only done 2 because I want to taste it. So I took out the seasoning packet and I put 2 of those in to give it some good flavor. Now I'm adding carrots. I'm working on taking the chicken off the bones. And I'm going to add that to the soup too. And I think I have some celery in my freezer that I'm going to add to that too. And essentially making homemade chicken noodle soup using these noodles. The second recipe I'm going to make is, here you can't see, I've been cooking all day, so my kitchen is a bit of a mess. So here is these pots. This is the chicken soup, adding the carrots there. And that is just broth right now, but soon that will be delicious chicken chili. My soup is done. Look at that. Oh, it looks so good. That's going to feed us lunch. Probably at least 1 day, maybe 2 days. Depends on how hungry we are. Anyway, soup number 1 is done. Here is the chicken noodle soup I made. I just used the ramen and I doctored it up with chicken and carrots, and it is absolutely delicious. And we're going to have this for our lunch. Okay, I'm getting started on the white chicken chili. I'm going to put a can of corn in. You could use frozen. This is white bean chili and a chili sauce. So I'm going to add a can of beans. Then it says put in diced green chilies. I don't know about where you live, but these are very hard to find. So I had some on my shelf, luckily. Fire roasted Ortega. Looks good. Now I already had that broth in here, and I made 1 pack of that chicken. Picked it off the bones and put it in here. Now I'm going to add, I microwaved this for about 20 seconds. This is 4 ounces of cream cheese and 4 ounces of Colby Jack. I'm going to stir that in. So the cream cheese is starting to melt. I'm still not fond of how runny it is. I don't know, I just like thick chili. So I think I am going to add another can of beans. I happen to have one. So I also ended up adding some more cheese because cheese makes most everything better. Tonight for dinner, we're going to have this chicken chili. And there'll be some leftover we can have for our lunch too. And anyone who wants it, I have some tortilla chips. That would be good to dip in the chili. Looks yummy. So today for lunch, I'm going to make a broccoli cheese soup. And I'm going to start with melting a little butter. And I think I'll put the carrots. I just did about probably 10 baby carrots. I'm just going to cook them in there for a couple seconds. And I decided instead of adding any fresh onion, I have this minced onion. I would just shake some of that in. My kids aren't always real happy with big chunks of onions, although you can chop them very fine. But we definitely want the flavor. And you could use probably some onion powder too. That'd be good. I'm going to make this gluten-free. So I'm going to throw in, let's see. That's about 3 tablespoons, 4. I'm going to put 5 tablespoons of gluten-free flour in. And you could use regular flour. That's kind of just making a roux. You want to cook the flour a little bit or it'll have kind of a raw taste. Now I have some of that homemade broth I made. And I'm going to add some of that. I normally don't measure, but I'll measure. I will measure for you. So I'm going to do, let's see, 1, 2, let's do 3 cups. We're going to start with 3 cups of chicken broth. And I'm going to stir this around to get all that flour. So it's kind of thick, but definitely not clumpy. We don't want clumps. So it's kind of the copycat Panera. I'm going to add in 1/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. I know that's kind of strange. And one of my favorite ingredients, white pepper. I don't know why, but I just love white pepper. I think it's just good. So I'm going to mix that in. Now I have 2 bags of chopped broccoli. I use the chopped because it's just, well, it's chopped. Now they call for half and half. I'm going to use 1% milk. And I'm going to measure it so I can tell you what I did. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 cups. That looks like a start. 4 cups. And it's kind of thick. I'm going to turn the temp down a little. When you're sauteing the vegetables, you want the temp up a little, but when you're making the soup, you probably want it down. I think this is going to work perfect. This is one of the most inexpensive soups. It's really good. I think I'm going to put the rest of this broth in because it looks a little too thick to me. So we're going to measure it. Another 1.5 cups of broth. 2 8-ounces of Colby Jack cheese that I just grated myself. And I'm going to put that in. Thankfully, I used the 1% milk and not the cream or half and half. As you can see when I add the cheese. But look at all the yummy veggies. That's good, right? My immersion blender is one of my favorite tools for getting vegetables into my family. That is true. All right, Cuisinart immersion blender. Couldn't live without this thing. We're not going to have it tonight, but something that's really good, if you're into Walmart, they have bread bowls, and they're $1 a piece, which I think is a really good deal. It makes it kind of a regular ho-hum meal that maybe your family's not going to be so excited about, and put it in the bread bowl, and everybody's like, woo, look at that. Looks delicious. Anyway, being the frugal person I am, I like to buy them when they're on that bread clearance rack for 50 cents. And then I freeze them, pull them out of the freezer, and then we have them sometimes when I make soup. You can't do it too often or they get spoiled and expected. So I think that looks about right. What do you think? It's got to thicken up. Ooh, look at the gooey cheese. Woo! It's got to thicken up. But other than that, I think that's a good consistency. The lid on that. Oh, that looks yummy. Put the lid on that and let that just simmer for a while. And this will be ready to go tomorrow for lunch. And it took me maybe all of, not even a half hour. And then it'll just sit here. So, I'll show you it when it's done. Ooh, it's starting to bubble. It's looking good. It is just such a simple soup to make. And it's packed full of lots of iron from the broccoli. It's one of our favorites. We're going to have that 2 days for our lunch. I am getting ready my crock pot for tomorrow, and I'm going to put all the ingredients in it, and then I will stick it in the refrigerator. And then I will, in the morning, we'll plug it in, and we will have hot, yummy chili for lunch. Here's 1 can of crushed tomatoes. Now, I always do this. Look at. I'm going to put a little water in that and rinse that out. When you cook in a crock pot, water always cooks out. If you're worried about it, you can take the lid off. I'm going to put 3 of these cans of chili beans. 1. Whoops. These were only 33 cents each, and they already have the seasoning in them and gluten-free. Even better. Look at that. generic Rotel. Adds a little spice. Look at that. That's looking good. So now I took a bunch of spices and I pretty much put a half a teaspoon of everything in except for crushed pepper. I didn't put a half teaspoon of that. I put about a quarter teaspoon of that. So I put in half teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of paprika, chili powder, parsley, onion powder, and garlic powder. That is ready to go. Look at that. That will be a delicious lunch. When I wake up in the morning, I will plug this in, probably put it on high to start, and then after an hour or two, I'll put it down to low. And we will have a delicious, yummy vegetarian chili for our lunch. For tomorrow, I want to talk about what this costs. The beans were 3 cans for 99 cents. The tomatoes I got for 85 cents. The Rotel was 69 cents. And that's it. Pretty darn delicious, healthy lunch. If you want to see more of these videos, subscribe to my channel, like, and comment down below. Thanks for watching.